And I don't think I have any volume on my computer.
It's something
Hold on
else.
just a second, we're still going live.
Okay, I guess I'd heard some for a while and know what happened.
Don, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I can hear you also.
You can put that out on the web, that's fine. I have photos.
We're good.
Okay.
No, Brian? He's up in his room, I'm sorry, in his office.
No. In his room. That's better.
Is it a safe space?
Got my blanket. I'm ready to go.
So it is written, so shall it be done.
He's virtual. He's via Zoom, yes. Okay, thank you.
Rebuild that section fence. And, I've done about 400 feet of it. It is. So are we on the air?
We are good to go.
Okay. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We will be led in the invocation by Commissioner Yarborough, followed by the pledge with Commissioner Meeks. If you wish to join, please stand.
Lord, thank you for this good and perfect day. Lord, bless Sheriff Bailey with our prayers to him and his family upon the loss of his dear mother. Take care of them, bringing them safely through their travels and what they must do to honor her. Please help us to understand and do the very best in our duties as Berrien County Commissioners. Thank you, Lord, and continue to keep us well, keep us safe, and bless the United States of America and all the world. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Don?
Okay, we're gonna try this all together. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the flag
of the
of
United
the United
States of
States
America
of America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic
to which it stands,
stands one
one
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Like an echo chamber. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Bell,
Present via Zoom, City of St. Joseph.
Curran,
Present.
did he say Giles?
Yeah.
Freely,
Present via Zoom, Baroda Township.
Harrison,
Present via Zoom from Lincoln Township.
Hinkleman. Majerick,
Present via Zoom, Niles, Michigan.
Meeks,
Present via Zoom, Ben Charter Township.
Scott,
Via Zoom, New Buffalo Township.
Ballrat,
Present and in the house.
Werfel,
Present via Zoom, Royalton.
Yarborough,
present via Zoom, City of Benton Harbor.
Elliott.
Present in the boardroom.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 present.
Thank you. The minutes from last week were revised and sent out. Any changes to those minutes? If not, is there a motion and support to approve the minutes of the March 18 meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Volrath, is there support?
Mr. Chair, I second.
Who was it?
I think.
Bell.
Bell, okay. Moved by Volrath, supported by Bell. Will clerk please call the roll?
Curran,
Yes.
Freely,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman. Yes. Majerick,
Yes.
Meeks,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ballrat,
Yes.
Werfel,
Yes.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas.
thank you. Anybody communicating with us this week?
Yes, you received 3 communications, one from Ruth Crum, Niles City, an email regarding the financial health concerns of Berrien County received on March 19th. Peter Dickow, West Michigan Regional Director for U.S. Senator Gary Peters, a press release. Peter warns OMB that proposed change to metropolitan population standards could cost Michigan communities valuable resources, received on March 22nd. Antrim County Board of Commissioners, 2 separate resolutions. One, a resolution supporting a collective effort by Michigan counties in opposing current and future orders unilaterally issued by the Governor Whitmer and state agencies in response to COVID-19. And the second resolution supporting Senate Bill 1, 2021, received on March 24th. That's all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
point of order for the board or for Annette. I have still not received the requisitions for this week. Somehow probably lost in the cloud or something. Anybody else received them? I did not. So,
Can we mute? Everything's breaking up again.
Mr. Chair, did you understand me? I have not received any requisitions for B 21-03071. I don't know whether it was just me or any other commissioners, or maybe it was lost in the cloud someplace, but possibly if it hasn't, Annette can forward that to us prior to the consent calendar.
okay. Well, we'll see what we can do about that. Thanks for telling us. Anyone else have that situation? Apparently not. Okay, well, we'll try to get that fixed.
Sorry,
Dan, are you?
this is Commissioner Freeling. I did not receive the requisition list either.
Okay.
Commissioner
Maybe we oughta-
Werfel, I did not as well.
We've got to move forward, so I can get it to them right now.
Let's just resend everybody to be on the safe side.
Yep.
All right. With that, we're at the point of having a presentation from Community Development Director Dan Fetty. You have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. All right. Last week at Finance Committee, we provided an update to the committee on the American Rescue Plan Act. This is the $1.9 trillion bill that was signed by the president a couple of weeks ago. In particular, we focused on 2 provisions of this act that have the most importance to Berrien County. The first is the local Fiscal Recovery Fund. I'm sure this is what everyone is aware of through the news, the direct allocation of money from Treasury to local governments, including Berrien County. The second aspect of the act that we went through were provisions that provide direct assistance to the business communities that have been affected by COVID. So the Finance Committee asked that I come here today and give the same presentation to the full board because it's a lot of material to get through, and it will become very important in our operations over the coming 12 to 16 months, I imagine. So I'm going to jump right in and just kind of go through this. Brian's doing the slides for me, but the first portion I'm going to talk about is the Fiscal Recovery Fund, because this is the one that I think is most interesting to us. Title 9, Part 8, Subtitle M provides approximately $362 billion to help states and territories, cities, and other local governments replenish lost revenue and mitigate economic harm from the COVID pandemic. Local governments across the country are expected to receive $130 billion divided between counties and local municipalities. Counties will receive about $65 billion of this fund. And most important to us, Berrien County is expected to receive 29,751,000 and change. And we should start seeing at least a portion of that payment probably, I'm guessing, within the next 45 days or so. It was originally 60 days in the bill. It's been about 14 days since the bill was signed. So it should be about 60 days, or 45 days that we'll start receiving these monies. The portion of this act, not surprisingly, has a lot of restrictions on the use of this money, allowable uses for recovery funds. There's very specific things that we can use the money for. And you're going to see that some of this is poorly defined and leaves a lot to be questioned. We can respond to or mitigate the public health emergency with respect to COVID or its negative economic impacts, and that would include direct assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, aid to impacted industries, particularly tourism, travel, and hospitality. This is spelled out specifically in the Act itself. We can provide government services to the extent that a reduction in revenue has occurred due to the health emergency. In other words, we can look at our lost revenue and replace that lost revenue in order to continue to provide government services. This is one of the areas that we're unclear as to exactly what this means. Lost revenue could mean a lot of different things, and we're waiting for clarification on that. We can also make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Now, of course, the county doesn't directly invest in water and sewer, but broadband would be an option. And I should mention these are three specific terms that are direct from the Act: water, sewer, broadband. That's it. They don't reference any other kind of infrastructure in the Act. And we can also provide premium pay to workers that have been performing essential work during the COVID pandemic. The question came up with finance as to, which workers are we talking about? And unfortunately, right now, the answer is it's somewhat unclear. Generally, essential workers are determined by the county administrator. But again, we need clarification from Treasury to determine which workers would be eligible for this. In addition to these kind of direct uses of the funds, our own internal costs, replacing lost revenue, providing assistance to the community directly. We can also transfer some of these funds if we choose to private nonprofit organizations, public benefit corporations involved in transportation. This would be like a transit authority, or special purpose units of the local government. These would be a variety of our authorities. You can think of the building authority or the brownfield authority or whatnot. In such cases, the transferee or the recipients of these funds can only use the funds for the same purposes that we could use the funds. In other words, the eligible uses that we discussed in the previous slide. So it's not as though we can just give a block of money to a nonprofit and allow them to do whatever they want with it. They have to comply with these eligible use requirements as well. There are a variety of ineligible uses also, not surprising. One of which may be beneficial to us is that the states that receive any portion of this money are not allowed to use it to offset a reduction in expenditures or revenues that they'd otherwise make. So we're reading this to mean that the state isn't going to be able to take, the state of Michigan won't be able to take this money and basically use it to swap out our revenue sharing, which of course they did last year with the CARES Act. This appears to prohibit states from doing that, but again, it's subject to interpretation of Treasury. None of these funds can be deposited into any public pension fund. You can understand Congress was concerned that some communities would be interested in like shoring up their unfunded liabilities with this money, so they specifically precluded that from eligible use. Additionally, there's a number of requirements that any expenditures of these funds that are deemed to be ineligible would have to be repaid by the local government unit. So we do have to be very careful in how we determine how to use these monies. There are a variety of administration and reporting requirements associated with this. As I said, the funds are going to be distributed directly by U.S. Treasury. The deadline to spend the funds is December 31st, 2024. So there's quite a bit of time to figure out what we want to do with this money. The question came up with finance on, is there a requirement that we spend a certain portion of it in a certain period of time prior to that? It appears that what's going to happen is that Treasury will make, I said, the first tranche of this payment, about half of the 29 million that we're expecting, sometime in the next 45 days. The second tranche will be made sometime before the end of the year. We're expecting around December 30th or so of this year. There is no requirement that we have to spend a proportion of the funds in any given time. It's just that they all have to be expended by December 31st of 2024. We are obviously going to have periodic reporting requirements to Treasury. We don't know what those reports will look like. I hope they're not too burdensome or onerous, but we know that there's going to be a great deal of accounting, bookkeeping, and general reporting that'll go along with the use of these funds. And as I said, if our expenditures are deemed to be ineligible, we would have to repay that amount to Treasury. So there's risk associated with using the money. That's a brief summary of what the local fiscal recovery fund looks like. And I'll go through some detail in the end of this presentation about potential uses of this money and outstanding questions. But now I want to shift to another provision of this bill that deals specifically with small business assistance. This is not the portion of the $30 million we're receiving. This is money that will go directly to the business community via Treasury and other associated agencies. The Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP loan program that everyone's well aware of, as well as the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, have received additional funding for their continuation. PPP received another $7.25 billion, and the EIDL, the loan program, received about $15 additional billion. So it's nice to see that these programs are continuing. I think I know anecdotally, they've been used throughout the community by a number of businesses that have been impacted. The Economic Development Administration is getting additional $3 billion to provide economic assistance. A lot of this is really intended for planning purposes, but a portion of it will be reserved for communities that have suffered direct economic injury or loss as a result of the pandemic, particularly in the tourism, travel, recreational sectors. Most of this money, because it's funneled through the EDA, our conduit for the EDA is the Southwest Michigan Regional Planning Commission. And they have a committee established, so local communities can apply for this funding, and then the committee reviews the applications, determines which one of them meet the eligibility requirements, and then send those off to EDA with a recommendation for funding. Commissioner Harrison and I have been on that committee for the last year, and I assume we're going to probably be convening again to look at more applications here shortly. In addition to the PPP loans and the adjustment loans and so forth, the Act does provide large direct fund support for restaurants and restaurants throughout the nation. $28.6 billion has been allocated and placed into what's called the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. It appears that this is going to be administered by the Small Business Administration, and they will be able to make grants of up to $5 million per business location, or $10 million in aggregate if the business has multiple locations. And this is obviously, these are direct grants to cover COVID-related losses due to mandated closures or reduced occupancy through state health orders. Eligible entities for this direct funding through the federal government would include restaurants, food stands, food trucks, caterers, saloons, inns, taverns, bars, lounges, brew pubs, tasting rooms, and tap rooms. Now, clearly there's a large sector in the hospitality business that's been impacted badly by this pandemic that doesn't fall within the qualification of an eligible entity, and that would be things like gyms and banquet halls, bed and breakfast hotels, event planners, photographers, local theaters, etc. You can imagine a variety of different businesses, all that support the hospitality industry, that are not considered eligible for funding through this direct program. The funding will be made based on a pandemic related revenue loss calculation. And basically all that means is that restaurants will show their 2020 gross receipts versus their 2019 gross receipts. And if the loss is greater than zero between those 2 years, they will be eligible for the entire sum of that loss, less any additional federal or state assistance that they've received during that period. So it potentially could be a great deal of money to, virtually every restaurant that qualifies for it. So there is going to be, the good news is there's going to be programs available for local businesses directly through federal government. There's going to be funds available to the county that could potentially be used to supplement those business assistance programs directly. And we also have the opportunity to handle some of our ongoing internal costs and our revenue losses that have resulted from this. But like I said, there's going to be a lot of questions. So in other words, we'll be able to use this for internal costs, security, tech upgrades, it looks like. and ongoing PPE requirements. We obviously have seen a decline in certain licensing fees and charges that could, we could use this money to offset that lost revenue. We could pay premium pay to eligible workers, depending on what the ultimate determination of that phrase means. We could potentially directly invest in broadband infrastructure, although I will mention it's somewhat unclear as to what that means as well. And we could transfer it to nonprofit partners to help provide business assistance programs to the tourism, travel, and hospitality industry. I will tell you, we've met with our nonprofit partners, and we met with the county EDC last week to discuss what a program like that could look like. And there's a great deal of interest on the part of our partners of trying to craft a program that could help the business community. That could use some of the funds that we have to help the business community. And our goal is to bring something back to this board in the next few weeks, a fairly detailed outline of what we think could be done to help some of these industries that have been impacted. And finally, we can transfer it to passenger transportation service as well. These are all the delineated eligible uses. The problem that we're really running into right now is there's just so much uncertainty about what certain provisions in this act mean. I can tell you when they say, respond to negative impacts, including assistance to homeowners. I mean, we're assuming that means direct assistance, grants to businesses, homeowners, nonprofits, and so forth, but it's not clear exactly what that phrase means. There's the talk about, or the provision that allows us to replace a reduction in our own revenues. Well, in some cases, what we're seeing is delayed revenue, not lost revenue. We don't know if reduction in revenue means delayed revenue, lost revenue. There's no clear definition as to what that would mean. The idea that we have to submit periodic reports, we don't know what those will look like or what the requirements will be. So there's a great deal of uncertainty here. We're expecting that Treasury is going to issue detailed guidelines on this fairly shortly, hopefully before the money arrives. I will tell you, last week, the National Association of Counties sent a letter off to Treasury Secretary Yellen requesting clarification on all of these matters and more. In particular, we know that broadband, water, and sewer infrastructure is allowable for, we can use our funds for those purposes, but we have a number of capital project needs that fall outside of broadband, water, and sewer that don't appear to be included as eligible uses under this fund. So the Association of Counties has asked Treasury to provide guidance that municipal capital projects in general would be eligible for this funding. And you can imagine we have a number of capital projects that we're staring at right now that we could use some help with. So if the definition is loosened up a little bit or expanded to include those, we may have some opportunity to use the funds for internal capital needs. The other thing that's strange about this is there's no provisions for administration costs. And this is going to be a lot of work for us to administer. It's going to be, the local communities are getting their own shares of money. It's going to be probably even harder for them to administer because they're smaller staffed. But there's going to be a lot of hours associated with figuring out how to use this money correctly and appropriately and not making mistakes on how we account for it. But as it stands right now, it doesn't appear that we're allowed to charge any kind of admin fee to this fund. So the Association of Counties has asked for Treasury to clarify what admin would be eligible. We also have some technical questions about, can we do software upgrades with this? Because we have ongoing software and hardware needs, and whether or not the money can be placed into an interest-bearing account, or do we have to hold it in a non-interest escrow? There's a lot of technical issues. The long and short of it is, and Brian and I had mentioned to finance last week, we are not advising that we do anything with this money right away until we get clarification and understand what our obligations are going to be. We have until 2024 to expend all this money, and we want to do it in a correct and careful manner that has the largest impact for both the county government and the community as a whole. If it turns out that we can craft a program where the money could be used for direct business assistance, and we're confident that we're meeting the eligibility requirements in doing that, it would probably be best to do that sooner rather than later to try to have the best impact on our local economy. But again, we need to be careful in how we do this. One of the things that we've discussed is carving off a portion of this and seeing if we can use it for business assistance, and then basically banking the rest of it until we have a clear plan on how to use it correctly. And that's kind of the outline of the advice that we're giving right now. And I think within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we should have a lot more information. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I know it's a lot to go through, but it's a changing landscape almost every day.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
So as Dan just indicated, the vague details are still being fleshed out. After this meeting, I'll be jumping onto a Michigan Association of Counties webinar between MAC, the MTA, and MML. All three organizations are working now to push more information out to provide essentially frequently asked questions to local units of government. And as soon as we have greater details from the state of Michigan, we'll just be in a better position to talk about how these dollars could be invested. But I said last week, and I'll just continue saying, I would urge caution. This is a lot of money. This is a great problem to have, but until we have a very clear list from the state on how these dollars can be invested, I would not spend any of it. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Dan, did you read anything where they're going to be pushing or looking to help like the health department or the Riverwood, which is the mental health, or caregivers or anything through the county?
Well, the short answer is that this act, I only addressed basically two provisions of this act. There are other provisions in the act that deal with direct public health funding for vaccination sites, ongoing testing, support for schools for reopening. There's a variety of different public health measures in the act that I haven't addressed here. That would really be more for Nikki Britt to dig into. She'd have a better understanding of how that works. But there is a substantial amount of money that's being allocated for public health purposes throughout the country. If you want, we could prepare some kind of summary of what that looks like. But as it stands right now, I'm not familiar of what assistance we're going to get for public health in addition to this local recovery fund.
Anyone? Yes, please.
Mimi Yarbrough. Dan, probably to you and Brian both. I'm concerned about the fact that the county got money. Many cities, townships, villages got money. How are you going to decide? Can people get money from all the pots, or you don't know? Do you know?
Well, we do know. I mean, the quick answer is all of the communities in Berrien County, townships, cities, and the county itself will receive direct allocations.
Yes.
The eligible uses that I went through at the very beginning of that presentation apply to all of the recipients, whether that's a city, a township, or the county government. They are still constrained by those eligible uses. So theoretically, a city could receive their share of funds and use it for assistance to a nonprofit, assistance to a business, premium pay for eligible workers. All of those uses are applied to all recipients of the funds. One of the things that we can't do, it appears, is transfer these funds to a local government. We can transfer it to a nonprofit or a special government unit like an authority, but not a local government directly. But in the larger scheme of things, the good news is that all of the communities in Berrien County are receiving substantial additional federal funding, and some more than others, obviously, but it's a lot of federal money that's going to be flowing through the local governments and the county.
Dan, Bob Harrison, once they clear up the eligible recipients, then they would look to us to establish the criteria and procedures for distributing the money. So is your expectation that that's where the big administrative burden will come? Not only developing the system, but actually administering it?
Yeah, I don't know how I really don't know how they're going to do this. I would hope that they would provide the maximum amount of flexibility for each government to make appropriate determinations on how they can, expend this in accordance with the eligible uses. So I'm hoping that they don't give us very restrictive guidance that says you have to do these very specific things with the money. I hope it's more of, we make a determination that this meets eligibility, and then we have the opportunity to craft a program to expend the funds. But there will be simple, ongoing accounting will be a challenge with this. You can think of all of the potential indemnification agreements that we'll have to draft up for recipients of this money if it's not the county itself that's spending it. I foresee a lot of ongoing administrative work over the next few years to try to track this money carefully and make sure that reporting is correct.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to pull up a screen share. This is straight from the Herald Palladium website. And just for any member of the board, any member of the public, this is just a very quick analysis showing the amounts being invested into the county. So these are public numbers, and I just wanted to pull up and demonstrate that, as Dan talks about, that the county is getting an allocation. Yes, very much. The local units are also getting allocations of federal dollars.
Brian, may I also point out that we were informed that Niles and Niles Township numbers were inverted.
Yeah,
The
they're
city of
flip
Niles
flopped.
is getting 7 million and the township is getting the 1 million.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Niles Town or Niles City and the city of Benton Harbor are getting huge allocations because they're CDBG eligible core communities. This is the technical definition, but anyone that's a CDBG eligible community is getting a very, very substantial allocation of funds, and that would be across the nation.
Dan, one last question for me. As you look at the banquet hall category, would that cover the wedding venues, proprietors, their business operations? I know I think most of us have received a call or two from people that operate these wedding venues and concern over what's going to happen.
Well, that was my attempt, Bob, to just list out a number of types of business that we know are involved in tourism and hospitality, but are not considered to be eligible directly for the Restaurant Recovery Revitalization Fund. They would still be eligible under the SBA programs like a PPP loan. So, but I'm sure if we really wanted to, we could drill down into each one of these hospitality sectors and find a variety of businesses that are either directly impacted by the closures or were impacted because they're an ancillary support business to one that was impacted. And I think, if we get into the area of providing assistance to the business community, the most challenging aspect is to try to define specifically which businesses we want to target. And that's going to take some time to figure out, and it'll have to be an open discussion. That's a lot of money that's at our disposal, but if you think about it, we have maybe 8,000 registered businesses in Berrien County, maybe more. That the money could go very quickly unless we're very careful in picking out those businesses that have been most.
Anyone else?
This is Commissioner
Yes.
Workman. Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I would hope, I think you had said this in the finance meeting last week, but I would hope that we're going to have maybe some kind of public hearing, working with the townships to make some coordination of efforts so that we aren't all hitting the same sector or something like that. As we decide to go forward, I know we want to take this slow, and I 100% support that. I think we need to make sure that we're very careful with this. Is there any thought given to that area?
Well, we already have discussed, I will tell you, just we met with the Strategic Leadership Council's Best Practices Committee, which is the combination of a variety of municipalities throughout Berrien County. And we talked to them about, to make them aware that this money was coming, first of all. But that would probably be a good venue to say, how can this be a coordinated effort so we get the biggest bang for our buck? We've also, the EDC, the Berrien County Economic Development Corporation, is also a public venue, which may be an appropriate place to kind of vet this out and think about who's doing what. Are we leveraging these funds with local funds and with additional federal funds to make sure that there's the most money available? All of which is going to, it gets back to what I said, this is going to be a tricky process to try to figure out how to do this and get the most money out the door in the most effective way possible. But it'll have to be done.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much, everyone.
We'll move on to committee reports. Jim, you want to lead off with admin?
Yes, thank you, Matt. The administration committee met yesterday morning at 10 a.m. One of our first guests was Marcy Hamilton from the Southwest Michigan Planning Commission. And we have a resolution that's on the consent calendar today that Marcy talked to us about. It is resolution ending in 3195. And this is to apply for grant funding for the linear trail. Commissioner Werfel had some questions about this resolution because she was not familiar with what we have done in the past. So we asked the administrator to send the background information to Commissioner Werfel and Commissioner Bell so that they would have that information. In 2018, this board authorized the development of the master plan for the countywide linear trail. This is to cover engineering for a section of the trail down in the Red Arrow Linear Park pathway. The application amount is for $99,000. There is a 34% match, which amounts to $51,000. And that amount will be reimbursed to the county by New Buffalo and Chickiming townships. This portion of the linear trail in Chickiming Township runs from Berrien Street to Sawyer Road, adjacent to Red Arrow Highway. And the portion in New Buffalo Township runs from US 12 to Community Hall Road. And both of those sections combined is 7 miles of the trail. And again, this is just for the engineering. This is not for construction. So if there are any questions, thank you, Brian. If there are any questions on this particular resolution, I'd be happy to answer those.
Anyone have anything?
Yes, Jim. Commissioner Scott. I'm reading through the resolution and I need some clarification. The first whereas is, it says that Berrien County Board of Commissioners approved resolution P1805222, which authorized the development of a master plan for a linear park along Red Arrow Highway. I remember that as us authorizing $36,000 to do an engineering study to come up with the linear park for the 18 miles, whatever it was. That's what I remember. That was done and we were given a report and we were told that depending on how the linear park was going to be, if it stayed a 4-lane highway, it would be approximately $42 million to do that 18 miles. If it was a 3-lane highway, it was $22 million. And that's what I remember. Where I have my problem with this resolution is I do not, and I could be wrong, somebody let me know, but I do not remember the second whereas. The proposed county-wide linear trail system would connect all Berrien County parks with various funding sources to include but not limited to MDOT and Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund. I remember a presentation given to us by Parks Director Brian Bailey, but I do not remember this board taking on a resolution approving of a county-wide linear park. I think this is two different things. This is for a portion of the Red Arrow Highway, which we'd already paid to look at that. I don't remember anything about that second whereas, so I don't understand why that's in there if that did not happen. And if I'm wrong, somebody please correct me. I stand waiting.
Okay, hold on a second. Go ahead, Jim, and then I'll chime in.
Oh, well, as my understanding, Ezra, is that through that resolution in 2018, we approved the overall linear trail project. And that this section is just a part of that project. I think as these sections become available for funding, then the details come out. So I think that this section is probably correct in what you're saying, but it is part of the larger master plan. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I think so. I just didn't remember that part of it, that we approved the entire linear trail system connecting all of the parks.
In the supporting documentation that was provided to us on this resolution, there was a copy of the master plan we approved in 2018. And it's, I don't know, about a 12 or 15 page document, and it's all in there. So we did. If you'd like to have that, if you'd like to have that sent to you, I'm sure we could do that easy enough because it came as an attachment to our resolution. Would you like it?
No, you as the administrative chair have reviewed that, and I stand down and take whatever you say is true and factual. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, Ezra. Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, did you have a comment?
Not now. We're good, thanks.
Okay, that pretty well took care of it. All right. If there's nothing else on that particular topic, we had Arthur Havlicek from the Southwest Michigan Chamber, who talked to us about the state of Michigan. And in December, the Trump administration gave the state of Michigan $5 billion. And a portion of that was to be used for small businesses in Michigan. The state legislature in early March passed a bill with bipartisan support for $555 million of that $5 billion for small business relief in Michigan. The governor vetoed that legislation. The legislation tried to do an override, that failed. So the legislators passed Senate Bill 114, which essentially says the same thing as House Bill 4047 on expending that $555 million. And it is currently sitting on the governor's desk. There's information that she is unlikely to sign it. So Mr. Havlicek came to our administration committee, asked if we would, as a board, support her signing the Senate Bill 114, or support for the release of the small business funds in general. After discussion, it was decided by the administration committee that we would put together a resolution with Arthur's assistance to support releasing the funds rather than specifically supporting her signing Senate Bill 114. So at the present time, it is in the hands of our staff who are in the process of writing that resolution. We have not seen it yet. As soon as that resolution has been written, the administration committee will review it, and hopefully we can get it to the entire board. Are there any questions on that?
Anyone have any questions for admin?
Okay, then the last topic that we talked about is our resolution authored by Commissioner Werfel, and that's ending in 3179. We discussed it. I think we have a final version of that. We are going to discuss it again in committee before that resolution moves forward. And if there's anything else from the committee members that I may have missed, if not, Mr. Chair, that's our report.
Okay, anyone else from admin have anything to share? All right, finance, Madam Chair.
Mamie?
Mamie?
You're not unmuted, Mamie.
I think you're muted.
There we go.
I was almost through.
Okay.
We met this morning at 8:30, and we had been requested to have a hearing with Sheriff Deputy Pamela Hampton, and that's what we did. And she was requesting purchase of her pension service credit. And we listened to her, we asked a few questions, and per Commissioner Scott, and we agreed we would like very much to have an opportunity, and Administrator Dissett suggested also that we put together questions and send them to him. He will get the answers. We will get a chance to have those answers and then be able to make a decision and come back and meet again with Deputy Hampton. Then we had bids. That's why we started early, because we had so many bids and different things going on. We had about, I think, 10 bids that we opened, and then we had a number of waivers, which is something new we're doing in our finance committee with our policy. And I would like at this time to ask Commissioner Frieding if she would tell us about the bids that we opened. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. As she stated, we did have a number of bid openings this morning. There were a total of 11 bid openings. The first one was for motor pool and the Drain Commission for a new Ford F-150 pickup truck. There were 3 vendors and 3 responded. However, one of them was a day late. So we only received 2 of those bids. Of course, we forwarded those back on to the staff to review it to make certain that it met all of the specifications. The lowest bid was from Three Oaks Ford for $29,911. The other 10 bids that we opened this morning were related to the road department. 7 of them were for HMA overlays. What we did with those was we referred them back to the committee or back to the staff to be able to review those to make sure that they met all of the specifications necessary. There was another one for liquid chloride, another one for county mowing, and the last one was for a scratch course application, which is just simply a thin layer of asphalt that's being applied. I don't know if, Madam Chair, if you want me to go into details on what those numbers were, but
No.
And then we did have 6 waivers through the new purchase policy that we've been working on. So that would be departments that have opted for different reasons, whether or not they can't find enough vendors to go out for bid, or they wish to sole source or single source. We discussed 6 of those waivers and moved forward with action from the committee. That's the report, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And then we accepted our minutes. We, by consensus, accepted paying the bill list. And that is what we did. Do you have any additions, board? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions for finance? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comments regarding resolutions. Hang on for a minute and we'll find out if there are any comments.
There's no public comments regarding resolutions.
All right. No one has made any request to change the consent calendar. And I've not received any requests to amend the agenda to add any resolutions. If there are any, now would be the time to bring that forward.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm perfectly fine with the consent calendar as it goes. It's not very often that we get to hear from Rocky Adams, and I believe he's here because of the declaring of the state of emergency for Berrien County. Do we need to pull that for explanation or not?
I think we can handle that, although if anyone has any questions of Captain Adams, he is here, and I see he has several 3x5 index cards with him that he can use for responding. So before we go any further, does anyone have any questions for Rocky?
What I would like to ask is if that resolution could be pulled and read, separately, and have him make a statement because it affects the whole county and very important.
Yeah, we can do that. Just have to get a hold of a copy. Sure. So you would like to pull it from the consent calendar and have it read and voted on separately, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, yes ma'am, we will do that.
Thank you.
Anyone have anything else regarding the consent calendar before we call it for a vote?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent calendar minus B2103192.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Curran. I'll support that motion.
Any discussion?
Moved by, you have to say that again. I'm sorry, you were moving.
Moved by Scott, supported by Curran. Is there any discussion? This is voting on the consent calendar minus the resolution ending in 3192. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Freeling.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hinkleman.
Absent as of 11/26.
Majerick.
Michael?
Yes.
Meeks.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Walrath.
Yes.
Werfel.
Yes.
Yarborough.
Yes.
Bell.
Yes.
Curran.
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yeas.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve resolution B2103192?
This is Commissioner Curran. I'll make that motion.
Moved by Curran. Is there support?
Support from Commissioner Scott.
Supported by Scott. Discussion? While you're thinking about any questions you might have, I'm going to call on Captain Adams to give an overview of what we are going to put into effect by declaring a state of emergency. Rocky.
Thank you and good morning to all. The actions proposed to the board will allow public bodies within Berrien County, including the county board, to continue to hold public meetings virtually consistent with Michigan law. The first action prepared was a declaration of local state of emergency for the chairman of the board. The second, the one being discussed now, is a proposed resolution of the board to confirm and continue the state of emergency until June 30 or a time earlier if so decided by the board. Some of the background reasoning of this: the Open Meetings Act of Michigan was amended early on during COVID-19 to allow public bodies to hold electronic meetings in an open manner for any reason until March 31 of 2021. After March 31st of 2021, a public body would only be able to hold an open meeting only through electronic means due to a local state of emergency or state of disaster under the current act. Under the current epidemic orders issued by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for COVID-19, no more than 25 people are permitted to gather indoors and must comply with the social distancing and other protective actions. As discussed in previous meetings, that was regardless of the size of the room is 25 people. So a room such as this is compared in the same manner that the Mendel Center would be. Therefore, the 25-person cap is there regardless of being able to mitigate it due to building size. So the desired outcomes from these actions today are the ability to continue regular routine operations of the boards, of all of the boards of public bodies within Berrien County. So that's anywhere from library boards to your municipal boards that have to meet in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. The second desired outcome is actually to avoid creating a state of emergency through the interruption of government services. So failure to act likely would create the need for local units of government as well as ourselves to assess the continuing operations of government. And without a local state of emergency, it would really impact the ability to meet, thereby driving us to the point where we would be creating a state of emergency by not declaring a state of emergency. So it's kind of an unusual situation that we're in, but it is what it is. It is for these reasons that I recommend the chair, or did recommend to the chair earlier, to declare a local state of emergency and for the board to consent to the continuation of a local state of emergency for at most June 30 of 2021. Some of the future efforts that we'd like to undertake on this topic would be essentially to engage maybe the legislature on some language in the Open Meetings Act that doesn't conflict with the Emergency Management Act. By declaring a local state of emergency, we're taking the balance of power from a board and placing it into a single executive. So at the state level, a lot of the powers of the legislature become aligned under the governor. County level, the powers of the Board of Commission are aligned under the chairperson of the Board of Commissioners. And under the Emergency Management Act, the idea was, if there's not the ability to be able to meet, we can still get services and make emergency purchases, things like that we need to respond to the emergency done by shifting it right to the chief elected official of the boards. So it negates the need to even have a public meeting to declare a state of emergency. So the two acts are a little bit in conflict and kind of ironic when it comes to the situation that we're in. There's no intent for that to happen locally. I think the key point for the public to understand is there should not be any change or any notice of any kind of change that they would see from the operations over the past few months. The health department is still going to be providing the emergency services that they have been. It really is targeted toward being able to provide open, transparent, and efficient government. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Captain. Any questions, comments? Jim?
I just want to thank Captain Adams for that explanation and for being here this morning. And I also want to acknowledge the county leadership for putting together this resolution and for taking the action that we're taking so that all the boards within the county and especially the governmental boards we don't have a complete shutdown. So I think that was very insightful from our leadership, and I appreciate every effort.
That being unable to meet would be a state of emergency.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just to follow up on Commissioner Curran's comment, I've received several emails from local, the managers of local units of government just saying thanks Just a big thanks coming from the local units to the Board of Commissioners, recognizing that this is something that was going to be a real crisis at the local unit level. So just wanted to pass that along.
Thank you. Anyone else on the screen or here in the room? Dave, did you have anything?
No, I just agree with Jim that appreciate all the hard work that they've done to prepare this.
Okay, Ezra, there is a hand covering your face. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I have also received many calls from my municipalities. And the question that I have for you is, once this is voted on and approved in the next roll call vote, this takes effective immediately, because I have people and municipalities that are waiting to hear so they can have their meeting.
Right, it takes effect as soon as it's passed. And we will be, before 12 noon or thereabouts, circulating a memorandum to all local units, to all local media, to inform them that this is in place. The only thing to, I guess, note is a technical detail. And that is that while this resolution takes immediate effect, it's going to be an ambulatory document, which means it won't really kick in until 12:01 a.m. on the 1st of April, because the existing legislative modification to the Open Meetings Act expires at midnight on the 31st of March. But this will be primed and ready to go at the stroke of midnight, so that on the 1st of April, even without any further legislative action out of Lansing, this declaration of emergency will be in place and everyone can keep doing what they've been doing.
Thank you. That was the explanation that everybody was kind of looking for, to know exactly when and how this was to be applied. Thank you for that explanation.
Yeah, ours is held in abeyance until the expiration of the existing modification to the Open Meetings Act of Michigan. And since it doesn't look like we're going to see anything coming out of Lansing, which is really disappointing, we will have this in place and ready to go. Questions, anyone else? All right, I am going to read it and then we'll vote on it if there are no other questions or comments. Resolution B 2103-192. The Honorable Board of Commissioners of Berrien County, Michigan adopts the following resolution. Whereas Michigan Public Act 390 of 1976 authorizes and vests the power of the Chairman of the Board of Commissioners to declare a state of emergency if circumstances within the county indicate that the occurrence or threat of widespread or severe damage, injury, or loss of life or property from a natural or human-made cause exists. And whereas on March 24, 2021, the Chairman of the Board of Commissioners of Berrien County declared a state of emergency to prevent losses or damages which could result from the interruption of governmental operations due to the expiration of the authorization for virtual governmental board, council, or commission meetings, and did so under Berrien County Emergency Order BCEO 2021-1, which references COVID-19. And whereas Michigan Public Act 390 of 1976, Section 10, explains that the term of a local state of emergency declared by the Chief Executive Officer of the county shall not be continued or renewed for a period in excess of 7 days, except with the consent of the governing body of the county. And whereas the conditions described in the written declaration of emergency still exist in Berrien County, and it is expected that Berrien County will need to extend the state of emergency until at least Wednesday, June 30, 2021. Now therefore, be it hereby resolved that the Berrien County Board of Commissioners, 1, confirms, authorizes, and ratifies the action taken by the Chief Executive Officer to declare a state of emergency for Berrien County, all local municipal subdivisions, and all public bodies in the county. 2, permits the extension of the state of emergency issued on March 25, 2021 through June 30, 2021. 3, will enable the continuation of virtual public meetings in a manner consistent with the current Open Meetings Act modifications on the dates publicly posted. 4, directs the Chief Executive and Emergency Management Coordinator to execute all of the responsibilities delegated to them under Michigan Public Act 390 of 1976 and the Berrien County Emergency Operations Plan, to include but not limited to expending funds. 5, this emergency declaration shall have immediate effect after the adoption of this resolution and may be terminated prior to June 30 if circumstances warrant. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Harrison,
Yes.
Majerick,
Yes.
Weeks,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Walrath,
Yes.
Werfel,
Yes.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Freely,
Yes.
Yes.
Elliott. Mr. Chair, you have 11 yeas.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have no objection, in the numbered paragraph 2, I'm going to insert the word of, OF, between the words extension and the. My copy has the word of missing, and it needs to be in there for the sentence to be grammatically correct. Is that okay with everyone?
Sure.
Okay.
It should be okay, Mac. It seems like there's error.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. All right, that's done. That's in place. Next on the agenda, commissioner reports. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share with the group?
Commissioner Werfel?
Yes.
I had 2 committee meetings this week, or since the last board meeting. First, the MAC Ag and Tourism Committee. We met last Friday. Had a presentation from an organic farmer in northern Michigan as we're getting ready to put platforms together for the coming year. He advocated for some general guidelines from the state for ag tourism zoning. He gave examples such as we do hay rides, those are okay under current zoning, but if an organic farmer does a farm to table meal, that turns them into commercial and things like that. So the changes in zoning that occurs, yet they're still agricultural is their primary revenue source. So that's coming down the pike potentially for the MAG Ag and Tourism group. And then we also met this week, the HHS committee from MAC, who too is working on platform issues. So if there's anything on that any input for our area, I've sent that all actually over to Bob Harrison as well already for his input from the Mental Health Board. But we had a presentation from Senator Stabenow's office regarding certified community behavioral clinics, CCBHC, which allows for federal grants and other funding, including better Medicaid rates flowing into our community. I did speak to someone I know over at Riverwood, and they are actually in process for that certification. So they would be the only one in our county that will have that certification. Hopefully they get it approved. That's something new that's just coming down. I think they said there's only 6 or 7 in the entire state of Michigan right now that have that certification. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on then to the administrator's report.
Mr. Chair, just a few things to cover. Just as a reminder, next week, your regular meeting on April 1st should be interesting. We have Bob Hance from Michigan Electric Co-op has agreed to come and offer an update to the Board of Commissioners on some planned broadband construction that'll be very much impacting Berrien County. So that'll be on the April 1st agenda, and please, to any of the commissioners, feel free to spread the word to township officials. Another worthy notation is, according to our health department, it looks like Monday, we as a county will see the number 60,000. So 60,000 vaccinations are set to occur right around close of business on Monday. So the number just keeps going up and up each passing week. And right now, the close of this week, we're going to be in the mid to high 50,000 range. And by Monday, we should be at or surpassing 60,000 total vaccinations. And then the last item of note is we are planning to open the doors back up to the public for the county administration building beginning Monday, April 5th. And with this plan, it's going to be a return to what the public saw in the fall of 2020. So we have made arrangements for laying security services to return to the lobby. We'll be doing the diagnostic check-in for any member of the public coming in. They'll have their temperature taken just via one of the forehead scans, then some basic information about the individual and some basic questions about their health before they can go in and do business with the various county departments. As far as the other departments across the county, we'll be approaching this with a bit of a modified approach. It'll still be largely appointment-based, just to control any crowds from assembling in any given area. But the departments are still very much working to service the needs of the public. Those are my comments, sir.
Are we going to then do a general reopening on the 5th of April? Is that the plan?
So for right now, our courts are in the process, and then the administration building will be completely reopened. The other departments, such as animal control, health, roads, will still be on an appointment basis. With animal control and health, they still have a lot of people going in and out on a daily basis, but we are still asking for people to make appointments before heading over there.
Okay. Might not be a bad idea for us to push some announcement out the door today about that as well.
Understood, sir.
Okay. Anyone have anything before I divert from the agenda to the sheriff? All right, Paul?
Oh, thank you. The commissioners that sent me a text or called me on the loss of my mom, that I really appreciated it. She was a wonderful lady, and she's going to be missed by my family. But secondly, I wanted to let you know that Annette is going to be mailing out to you the 2020 annual report. It was just finished a couple days ago. So since we don't meet in person, you're going to get it through the mail. If there's any questions, please call me or email me. Be happy to answer any of those. Just to fill in 2020, we booked in 4,662 inmates, about 2,000 less than 2019 because of COVID-19. So it's been very challenging. I want to thank my staff for putting as much as we can into our report so that the commissioners and the public can see what we do, what we spend, and how many arrests we make, and how many people come to jail, and our release. The report is 68 pages long, so every division is covered in this report. And so once again, if you have any questions, once you receive the booklet, please give me a call and we can go over it. That's all.
Thanks,
all I have.
We're now at the point of receiving general public comments. So stand by and we'll see if anything comes through.
And for the public, I think Friday it will be online. If you go to bcsheriff.org, the monthly report will be online and they can pull it up and make a copy of it. So if anybody talks to you and says, hey, I would like to get a copy of the monthly report, they'll be able to go online at bcsheriff.org and pull up a copy.
Great, thanks.
Eric Lester from St. Joseph Township. Thank you, Chairman Elliott, for this resolution, RE the county state of emergency. Adolph Peltzer from Hager Township. I hope that you will allow us a chance to support allow us a chance to suggest how to spend that money that was sent down from the federal government. And I will ask one more time.
I'm sure he is.
I'm sorry, Sheriff, did you just say that that will be available online, your sheriff's report?
Yes,
So
at
I
our
have
website.
public comment also from Adolph Peltzer of Hager. Is there a chance that I can get a copy of the report by the sheriff? That will be available online.
Right.
Could it be online?
We would not have a hard copy to give out, but it can be read online.
Should be on there by tomorrow.
By tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, so let me just check one more time. Okay, I think you're good.
All right. Anyone have any other business? Yes, Julie.
Sorry, trying to get unmuted. I just have my Spectrum Health Lakeland shirt on today, as I was a volunteer at the Spectrum Berrien County Health Department and National Guard clinic this week, which was the first joint clinic. It was also the first clinic that we vaccinated 18 years old and up in the county, and there was 3,400 vaccinations that day. We had over 150 volunteers there and about 100 staff members at that clinic. It was excellent. It was run so well. We moved people through well, and I just want to give that shout out to all of the county employees that participated in it, in the community, and to Brian's point, we're going to approach 60,000 on Monday.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Julie. Anyone else have anything? I received a message yesterday from Judge Wiley, and he asked me to share with you. It says, just a quick note to advise how impressed I've been with COVID vaccination distribution by the Berrien County Health Department. Both my wife and I, as well as 2 daughters and 2 sons-in-law, have been vaccinated at on various dates at various venues. The organization was tremendous on each occasion with little delay. Yesterday I drove Janine, that's his wife, to the Mendel Center for her first shot, and they moved hundreds of vehicles in and out of the parking lot and people in and out of the Mendel Center in record time. She was in and out in less than 25 minutes and said the staff was very kind to everyone. Kudos to Nikki Britton, Jillian Conrad, and the Berrien County Health Department staff, as well as the Sheriff's Department, National Guard, and hundreds of volunteers for making it happen so seamlessly. They should be publicly commended, Mr. Chairman, and I agree. I think we are most fortunate. Things can be remarkable, and that can be a good or a bad. In this instance, remarkable is remarkably good. And our county shines, and it's because of these folks that Judge Wiley referenced in his text message. And I appreciate him sending it, and told him it would be read into the record, and I hope there's no objection to that. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please reference it accordingly in our minutes. Announcements and reminders.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Freeling.
Yes.
I would just like to take this time to do my regular announcement. We are wrapping up the Berrien County Broadband Survey, and any individuals who have not yet taken the survey, we encourage you to do so. You can find the link on berriencounty.org's website, or also go to www.michiganmoonshot.org/Berrien to take that survey. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. And that's good through tomorrow, correct?
26.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, thanks. Announcements and reminders, as you can see on the agenda, admin's meeting next Wednesday at noon, PHS next Thursday at 8 a.m., Finance next Thursday at 9 a.m., and this board on April 1st at 10:30 a.m., no fooling. If there's nothing else, we stand adjourned to